welcome. You landed on part two of a part two series on one of the biggest health movements of 2026, food as medicine. If you haven't listened to episode one yet, I highly recommend going back. But here's a quick catch up so you're not lost of where we're going to start today. In episode one, we talked about the science. We went all the way back to 400 BCE and Hippocrates, who understood that food and uh, and medicine are not two different things; they are the same thing. We talked about how the rise of processed food created a chronic disease epidemic that is now costing us trillions of dollars and millions of lives. People just don't understand that they keep eating these highly processed foods and it's killing them slowly but surely. It's a long, slow, painful death. We looked at gut microbiome research, the Mediterranean diet, the links between food and mental health, and how much, people with bipolar disease or people with all these mental disorders, and how alcohol and highly processed foods are causing these problems, and what specific clinical trials are showing right now in 2026. The bottom line from episode one: the food you eat has direct, measurable, and often reversible impact on your physical health, your mental health, and your brain health. The science is in on all of this. The evidence is solid. I know that I even had my own experience where I had ballooned up to 197 pounds. I was I was considered obese, not morbidly obese, but I was obese. I had prediabetes, I had high blood pressure, I had high triglycerides. I wasn't working out during COVID. I was eating highly processed foods and it made me so sick. This was like a science experiment. And sure enough, I went to the doctor and they were going to put me on all kinds of medication. And I said, no, I'm going to lose the weight. And I did. In 4.5 months, I lost 45 pounds, got to a healthy weight, lost all the disease. And you can also. And it runs in my family. My father died of a heart attack. My mother has diabetes and high blood pressure and arthritis. And I even had arthritis in my knee and in my neck, all gone. That's all from using food as my medicine. Now, in episode two, we're going to talk about what happens when that science meets the real world, the politics behind it, the policy, the billions of dollars, the jobs, the farmers, the insurance question, and the future of nutrition that is coming faster than most people realize. Because here's the thing: this is not just a health story anymore. This is an economic story, a business story, a political story. And by the end of this episode, I think you're going to see the food as medicine movement in a completely different light. So let's go. Before we can understand why billions of dollars and the attention of governors across the country are now pointed at food, we need to understand just how big the problem is. Because when you see the numbers, the urgency makes complete sense. Let's start with chronic disease. Chronic diseases are conditions like type 2 diabetes, heart disease, high blood pressure, obesity, and certain cancers. They are called chronic because they do not just go away. They stay with you and they require constant expensive management. How many Americans have at least one chronic disease right now? According to the CDC, which is the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, the answer is 129 million people. That is 129 million Americans living with at least one chronic condition. And 75 million of those people have two or more. 129 million Americans currently living with at least one chronic disease condition like diabetes, heart disease, obesity, or high blood pressure. That is nearly 40% of the entire US population. This is outrageous. And 75 million Americans living with two or more chronic conditions simultaneously. Managing multiple conditions at once dramatically increases healthcare costs and reduces your quality of life. And of all Americans, 90% of them, uh, of all US healthcare spending, which totals $4.5 trillion dollars per year, goes towards managing chronic conditions. This is outrageous. This is why everything is so expensive. 9 out of every 10 healthcare dollars spent in America goes to treating diseases that are heavily driven by what we eat. Let me say that once again, because it is important. The United States spends $4.5 trillion every year on healthcare. And 90% of that, 90 cents out of every dollar, goes towards managing chronic conditions, most of which are directly connected to the highly processed foods and the junk food that you are eating. We are spending staggering amounts of money managing diseases that food could help prevent. And in many cases, food could help reverse. This is not a wellness blogger's opinion. That is the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services' own data. Now, here is where it gets even more interesting because people who have been studying this problem for a long time have started to ask a really logical question. What if, instead of spending all that money managing these diseases after the fact, we spent some of it preventing them in the first place? What if we used food as the intervention? That question is now driving some of the most exciting policy conversations happening in America today. And the answers are bigger than most anyone expected. This episode is sponsored by Larson Nutrition. We have been talking about how real whole food is genuinely powerful medicine. And Larson Nutrition is built around exactly that idea. Whether you're trying to eat better, manage a health condition, or just feel more energized every day, Larson Nutrition has clean, whole food based products and honest nutritional guidance to help you get there. No gimmicks, no mystery ingredients, just real nutrition that works. Check them out at larsonnutrition.com. That's LARSON nutrition.com. In March 2026, just a few weeks ago, as well, yeah, maybe a month over a month ago, as we recorded the first session, the Rockefeller Foundation released a report that I think is going to be looked back on as a landmark moment in American health policy. Now, it all started with Rockefeller and that company putting out a bunch of medications with petroleum because that's where they made their money. But now they're giving back and they're trying to help heal this problem. It is called From Farm to FIM. The economic impact of local food is medicine. The Rockefeller Foundation, for those who may not know, is one of the most respected philanthropic organizations in the world. They have been investing in health and food systems for over a century, except for what you don't know about is that they've been investing in highly processed foods and oil-based petroleum products because that's where they made their money. And they commissioned a major analysis from an economic advisory firm called Dahlberg Advisors, pulling together experts from agriculture, healthcare, policy, and economics. This was a serious, rigorous piece of work that they are actually investing in. And what it found was extraordinary. What the report found, the question they asked was this: if the United States scaled up food is medicine programs, things like produce prescriptions and medically tailored meals to reach all the Americans who need them most, what would the economic impact be? And the answer across all 50 states is this: $45 billion in new state economic activity generated annually if food is medicine programs are scaled to reach the 43 million Americans who need them most. This is not a healthcare saving. This is new economic activity rippling through local communities. And then what about new jobs? 316,000 new jobs created nationwide, not just in healthcare, but in food aggregation, transportation, meal preparation, delivery, and local farming and community services. In a new annual revenue of America's small and mid-sized farms, the, re- the report found that $45.6 billion, that's when healthcare dollars are spent on locally sourced food, family farms, which makes up over 90% of US farms, get a stable, predictable market that many of them desperately need. And $23.7 billion in healthcare costs could be saved annually if medically tailored meals were scaled to all eligible patients, plus 2.6 million hospitalizations prevented every year, not reduced, prevented. That's amazing. I want to sit with that last number for a second. 2.6 million hospitalizations prevented every year by food. A hospitalization costs thousands of dollars, sometimes tens of thousands. If you prevent 2.6 million of those hospital visits every year, that's not just a health win. That is an enormous economic win for patients, for families, for insurance companies, for state budgets, and for the federal government. The Rockefeller Foundation is not a small operation. They have invested over $220 million in what they call their big bet on nutrition, with $100 million of that specifically committed to expanding access to food is medicine programs across the United States. They're not betting on this lightly. They see where the evidence is pointing and they are putting serious money behind it. The farm connection, something most people miss. Here's the part of the story that I think gets overlooked, and it is one of my favorite angles. The food is medicine movement is not just a healthcare story, it is also an agricultural story. The US loses more than 20,000 farms every year. 20,000 farms gone. Mostly small and mid-sized family farms that can't compete with the large industrial operations that are spreading glyphosate, that our president just allowed everybody to put glyphosate all over their products and use these genetically modified seeds that really should not have to be sprayed because the bug shouldn't be on them. But yet they're putting all these cancer causing chemicals on our plants at these industrial operations. These are the farms that grow the kind of diverse, nutrient dense food that the food as medicine research is pointing to from these small and mid sized farms, and they are disappearing. Now, imagine what happens when a state Medicaid program or a network of hospitals starts buying fresh, locally sourced produce and meals to prescribe to patients. Suddenly, there is a stable, predictable market for local farmers. They know what to grow, who is buying it, and at what price. The Rockefeller report estimates that routing healthcare dollars toward locally sourced food could deliver $5.6 billion a year to small and mid sized farms across America. This is a rare case where doing the right thing for human health, doing the right thing for the environment, and doing the right thing for rural economies all point in exactly the same direction. You do not see that very often. And it is one of the reasons this movement is gaining so much momentum so fast. Okay, so the economics are compelling. The science is solid. Now, let's talk about what is actually happening in government because the policy world is moving faster than most people realize. In June 2025, the National Governors Association, that's the official organization representing the governors of all 50 US states, published a policy paper titled Food is Medicine, a strategic shift in state health policy that is not a minor document. This is the governors of this country formally acknowledging that what people eat is a healthcare issue and that states need a strategy for it. The paper noted that governors across the country are now driving what is called a new phase of healthcare transformation, one that positions healthy food as a reimbursable, clinically relevant intervention to address chronic disease. Reimbursable. That is a key word. It means insurance pays for it, just like it pays for medication, just like it pays for surgery. The question is no longer, is food medicine? The question is now, how do we make the payment system catch up to what the evidence already shows? So I want to talk about how Medicaid is starting to pay for the food. Let me explain how this works because the policy pathway matters. In the United States, Medicaid is the government health insurance program for lower income Americans. It covers about 80 million people, and it is administered differently in each state. States can apply to the federal government for something called a Section 1115 demonstration waiver. This is basically permission to try new approaches in Medicaid that are different from the standard rules. And increasingly, states are using these waivers to cover food based interventions. As of late 2024, 10 states had already received approved waivers that expand access to food as medicine programs for their Medicaid populations. 10 states, and the number is growing. In May 2025, Massachusetts received an approval of a waiver that allows the state to pilot benefits, including medically tailored food assistance. Michigan is using a mechanism called the lieu of services, which means Medicaid managed care plans can offer food based support instead of a more expensive standard medical service to cover nutrition needs for their members. California is running a massive statewide Medicaid transformation program called CalAIM, which includes provisions for medically supportive food and nutrition services. And multiple other states are exploring how to integrate food as medicine into their Medicaid frameworks. The Maryland story is, I want to tell you about Maryland specifically because this just happened. Days before we recorded the first episode, the Maryland Department of Health launched its medically tailored meals program. This is a state government program funded, structured, and launched specifically to deliver dietitian designed meals to patients with diet related health conditions like diabetes or heart disease. And the data they cited when they announced it was striking. Medically tailored meals had led to significant drops in A1C levels. That is the blood sugar measure for diabetic patients. And hospital charges dropped by 27%. 27%. That number means something to every hospital administrator, every insurance company, and every state budget director in the country. Maryland is not a small experimental state. This is a mainstream state government making a mainstream policy decision based on mainstream evidence, and it will not be the last. Now, let's be real for a second because this is where the story gets complicated. The policy momentum is real, the evidence is real, but getting insurance companies, private insurers, Medicare, Medicaid to fully cover food based interventions as standard medical benefits is still a work in progress. Even though the evidence is out there that food is medicine and it will be cheaper than paying for medications to heal these people. The 2026 Medicare physician fee schedule, that is the federal rule book for what Medicare pays for, was updated this year. Advocates had pushed for a separate billing code that would allow doctors to prescribe and bill for medically tailored meals. Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services acknowledged the request, but did not include it this time. They said medically tailored meals can be offered as what they call a beneficiary engagement incentive, but it is not yet a separately billable standard benefit. This is a big setback, but it is also not the end of the road because what we are seeing is a classic policy progression. First, the evidence builds, right? Then the pilots happen. Then the state level programs launch. Then the economic data comes in showing savings. And then eventually the federal payment system catches up. We are somewhere in the middle of that journey right now. The direction is clear. The pace is what is still being debated. So we're going to keep going in just a second, but first, a word from Larson Botanicals. You just heard how the science of botanicals and plant compounds is moving from folk medicine into mainstream. And Larson Botanicals has been ahead of that curve. We harness the power of carefully sourced plant-based ingredients to make skincare and non-toxic candles that actually support your body, your immune system, and your overall health. High quality, science informed, and no nonsense. Visit larsonbotanicals.com. That's Larson, Larson botanicals.com, and see what we have built. The body will notice the difference. I have made this new amazing skincare line that is an advanced bioactive skincare line. And within 3 days, I noticed such a big difference of using this product. I'm like, wow. And this is going after the big guys, the guys who are charging you 200, 215, $190 for 1 ounce of a product. And I'm going to be having it for a lot less. It's going to be around $80. But this is going to be in also a Miron glass, Miron Miron glass. And this glass, you can put it in the sun and it's going to add beneficial benefits to your herbs, to your whatever you put into it. So it's going to start with a skincare line that I have, but then you're going to want to put it in, use it for your herbs or whatever else when you're done with the product. It's an amazing glass. Check it out, Miron Miron glass. It's a violet colored mirror, a glass. So let me zoom in on one of the most practical and exciting parts of the food is medicine movement: produce prescriptions. Produce prescriptions. I'm so excited about this because I think when people hear this term, they sometimes picture something vague or theoretical. It is actually very simple and it is already working. Here is how a produce prescription program works in practice. A patient goes in to see their doctor. The doctor identifies what they have, a diet related condition, let's say type 2 diabetes or prediabetes. The doctor also determines that the patient is food insecure, meaning they struggle to afford or access healthy food consistently. The doctor then writes a prescription, not for a drug, but for produce, fresh fruits and vegetables. The patient takes that prescription to a participating grocery store, farmer's market, or community health hub. They use it like a voucher or a gift card specifically for fresh fruits and vegetables. And the program tracks their health outcomes over time. This sounds simple, but the results are remarkable. 0.8% of servings, more fruits are helping our patients per day, right? So this is literally what is helping our patients. So I'm amazed by people are actually finally getting this, right? That is not just people need to eat just more vegetables. It's actually prescribing the vegetables to them, which I think is just so amazing. So this program. It's not just dramatic, right? It's real. It's sustainable. It's meaningful over time. And let me add one more layer to this. A September 2025 study published in Diabetes Care modeled what would happen if produce prescriptions were scaled across all 50 US states for food insecure adults with diabetes. The projected outcomes included tens of thousands of prevented diabetes complications, significant reductions in healthcare costs, and measurable improvements in life expectancy, all from a program that essentially helps people buy more vegetables and fruits. The cost per patient in these programs is relatively modest, right? Medications are very expensive. They all have side effects. But when you buy fruits and vegetables, they're also good for you. The savings is savings in avoided hospitalizations, medications, and complications are substantial. The math works. The evidence works. The only thing that needs to catch up is the policy and the funding infrastructure. And we are making progress on that every month. New and more states are joining. And I want to take you somewhere even more exciting because uh even here where we are, right? Because everything we have talked about so far, the produce, the prescriptions, the medically tailored meals, the policy changes, that is the present. That is what is happening right now. What is coming next is going to change the game entirely. And it is called precision nutrition or personalized nutrition. This is what I work on at larsonnutrition.com. And it is moving from science fiction to science fact faster than almost anyone anticipated. Here's something that is going to make a lot of intuitive sense. Have you ever wondered why the same diet seems to work brilliantly for one person and barely at all for another? Two people eat the same things, one loses weight, has more energy, feels great, the other sees barely any change. Why? For a long time, scientists assumed this was mostly about genetics, willpower, or how active people were. But the gut microbiome research is pointing to a different answer. The trillions of bacteria in your gut are uniquely yours. They are shaped by where you grew up, what your parents gave you, what you ate as a child, how your parents' microbiome was, because they transfer their microbiome or gut health to you. And what you ate as a child, what medications you've taken. Have you been on hormone replacement therapy? Have you been on the pill? Have you taken a lot of antibiotics? Your stress levels, your sleep, and dozens of other factors. No two people have the exact same microbiome. And here's the key insight. How your body responds to the specific food depends heavily on which bacteria you have in your gut. That's why almost every day I have kefir or kimchi or sauerkraut, some kind of fermented food. I have broccoli, I have cauliflower, I have carrots, I have vegetables, right? I try to eat this stuff on a regular basis because that feeds my microbiome. The same bowl of oatmeal can produce a very different blood sugar response in two different people, depending on their microbiome composition or their insulin sensitivity. The same probiotic supplement can be highly effective for one person and do almost nothing for another. Although I got to tell you, I take seed, capital SEED, and I've recommended this to several people. If you can afford to get seed, you will see a huge difference in your digestive tract and in your microbiome. It is amazing. And this means that the future of nutrition is not one size fits all dietary guidelines. The future is personalized. Your food designed for your body based on your specific biology. And the technology is making it possible. So, how does personalized nutrition actually work in 2026? A few different ways. And the technology is advancing fast. The most direct approach is microbiome testing. Companies like Zoe, Viome, and Day2 are already offering consumer facing microbiome diagnostic services. You do a simple test using a stool sample, and it gets analyzed using advanced DNA sequencing technology. The company then maps out which bacteria are thriving in your gut, which ones are underrepresented, and how your microbiome compares to health benchmarks. From that analysis, you receive personalized nutrition recommendations, specific foods to eat, more of, foods to limit, and sometimes specific probiotic strains that are particularly your particular microbiome may benefit from. The Zoe study we talked about in episode 1, the one with 34,000 participants published in Nature in December 2025, is directly tied to this. Zoe, ZOE, has been building one of the largest databases of microbiome and dietary data in the world. And they are using it to create what is essentially a precision map of how specific bacteria respond to specific foods. The more data they have, the more accurate and personalized the recommendations become. And in April 2025, a study published in Nutrients tested an AI based personalized nutrition program on real participants over 6 weeks. The AI integrated information about their gut microbiome, their dietary habits, and their health goals. And it produced measurable changes in microbiome composition, meaning the recommendations were actually reshaping people's gut bacteria in a positive direction just in 6 weeks. Could you imagine turning around your health in 6 weeks? You've got hives, you've got itchiness, you're tired, you're sluggish, you're brain fog, you've got all kinds of problems going on. You've got skin conditions, you've got all kinds of stuff going on, right? Well, that ends up being literally stuff that's going on in your gut. Artificial intelligence is becoming a major force in this space, and not in a gimmicky way, in a genuinely useful, evidence based way. Here's the challenge that AI is helping to solve: the relationship between diet, gut bacteria, and health is staggeringly complex because everyone is so different. There are trillions of bacterial cells, thousands of species, millions of possible dietary combinations, and individual variables like age, genetics, medications, stress, and sleep, all interacting simultaneously. A human nutritionist, however, brilliant, cannot hold all of that in their head and produce a truly personalized plan. It takes 100 questions to really understand everything that's going on between what do you do for work? What is your stress? How do you sleep? What do you interact with at work? What do what's your home environment like? What kind of clothes do you wear? What kind of soaps do you use at home? What kind of skincare do you use? What kind of shampoo do you use? I mean, what kind of water do you drink? Do you drink out of plastic bottles like you shouldn't be doing? Because, oh my God, there's so much plastic in brains now. This is why the epidemic I could go on and on about plastics. Oh my God. Anyway, I'll stay to the point. A 2026 review published in Gastroenterology journal described how AI driven systems are now able to integrate genomics, microbiome profiles, metabolic markers, and real time dietary tracking to generate truly individualized nutrition recommendations. This is not replacing dietitians. This is giving dietitians and doctors a tool that can process vastly more information than any human can and turn it into specific, actionable guidance for each individual patient. The EU launched a major research project called Nutriome, funded through their Horizon 2020 program, specifically focused on understanding the relationship between nutrition and their microbiome to enable precision dietary recommendations that prevent disease long before it starts. International government funded large scale research pointed at personalized nutrition. The direction is clear. In 10 years, the idea of giving everyone the same dietary guidelines, regardless of their individual biology, will seem as outdated as giving everyone the same medication, regardless of their genetics. Personalized nutrition is coming, and the food is medicine movement is the foundation that makes it possible. I want to leave you with some word from today's sponsors. Everything we talked about in this two-part series, the gut microbiome, the inflammation, the whole food eating, the personalized nutrition, Larson Nutrition and Larson Botanicals are living that mission every single day. If this series inspired you to make a change, those two websites are a great place to start larsonnutrition.com and larsonbotanicals.com. Larson Nutrition is whole food nutrition support, and Larson Botanicals is for clean plant powered skincare and candles. Well, you can visit larsonbotanicals.com and larsonnutrition.com to learn more. Now, I want to spend a few minutes on something that is relevant if you are a business owner, an entrepreneur, someone working in healthcare, or just someone paying attention to where the economy is going. Because the food as medicine movement is not just a health trend, it is an emerging economic sector, and it is moving fast. Think about what we have covered in this episode. $45 billion in projected economic activity, 316,000 new jobs, $5.6 billion in new farm revenue, a Rockefeller Foundation making a $20 million bet, states writing food is medicine into Medicaid, hospitals tracking 27% reductions in costs from food programs, 27% reductions in costs from food programs. And that's not even to everybody, right? This is just to people who can't afford to buy their own food. This is not a niche wellness market. This is a major economic sector in formation. And here are the areas where opportunity is building right now. Medically tailored meals. Companies that prepare and deliver dietitian designed meals are seeing growing demand from hospitals, health systems, state Medicaid programs. This is an emerging B2B healthcare market with long term contract potential. The infrastructure for running produce prescription programs, enrollment platforms, voucher systems, data tracking, outcome measurement is still being built. This produce prescription tech, right? Software and logistics companies that solve these problems will have a significant market. Think about companies like US Foods and all these companies delivering food, right? Cisco Foods. They're going to learn a lot about how they can actually deliver. Even, the liquor companies that are starting to less and less people are drinking alcohol. The younger generation, over 48% of younger people are not drinking alcohol at all. I haven't had a drink in over 8 months, and I'm not going to drink anymore. So the wine industry in California is starting to fail because people are realizing that this is not really that good for us. All the alcohol, it's been marketed as help you relax after work, which bullshit marketing. We do not need alcohol. It has no positive effect for our bodies whatsoever. It makes you tired. It makes you sleepy. It makes you brain foggy. You don't sleep well with it. Consumer and clinical microbiome diagnostic is a fast growing market. Zoe, ZOE, Viome, VIOME, and Day 2 are early leaders, but the field is wide open as precision nutrition scales. Functional food and supplements. The demand for food products and supplements, specifically designed to support gut health, reduce inflammation, and enable personalized nutrition, is growing rapidly. This is a market where science-backed brands will win. Local farming and food supply. As food as medicine programs scale and prioritize local sourcing, there is a growing and stable market for local farms and food distributors who can meet the quality and delivery requirements of healthcare-linked food programs. The businesses that are going to win in this space are the ones that understand something fundamental. This is not a wellness trend. This is a healthcare transformation. The people buying these products and services are not just consumers looking for something trendy. They are patients, doctors, hospitals, insurance companies, and state governments looking for something that works. Be credible, be science backed, be consistent, and pay attention to where the policy is heading. Because wherever Medicaid goes, private insurance tends to follow. We've covered a lot of ground across these two episodes. Let me bring it all together. In episode 1, we saw that the idea of food as medicine is not new. It is 2,400 years old. And we saw how the explosion of ultra processed food over the last 70 years created a chronic disease crisis that now consumes 90% out of every healthcare dollar spent in America. In this episode, we saw what happens when the science meets the policy and the economics. A Rockefeller Foundation report projecting $45 billion in economic activity, 316,000 new jobs, and 2.6 million hospitalizations prevented every year from scaling food is medicine programs, state governments using Medicaid waivers to pay for produce prescriptions, Maryland launching a statewide medically tailored meals program that cut hospital charges by 27%. That's millions of dollars. Governors across the country formally recognizing food as a reimbursable healthcare intervention. And we saw the future personalized nutrition powered by gut microbiome science and artificial intelligence. Now, I haven't had my feces tested yet, but I'm thinking about it. A world where your food is designed specifically for your biology, where the question is not what is a healthy diet, but what is the healthy diet for you? Here's the thing. I keep coming back to Hippocrates figured this all out in 400 BC. Cultures around the world have known it for thousands of years. The science is confirming it in 2026 with more rigor than ever before. The policy world is starting to act on it. The economics are making it irresistible. We have all the pieces. We just need to put them together. And on a personal level, you do not have to wait for Medicaid to cover your vegetables. You do not have to wait for a precision nutrition app to tell you what to eat. You can start tonight. Think about more colors on your plate, more fermented foods, more fiber, right? Beans are so good for us. Beans are so affordable. If you're worried about the costs, put some beans with some rice and chop up some bell peppers in there. I don't like green bell peppers, but I love red, yellow, orange. Put some green beans or peas or carrots. Put some orange slices. Put whatever you like in there, but put some vegetables in there, whatever you like. Just get your vegetables and stop whining and complaining. I don't like vegetables. Figure it out, please. You need this for your health. so so many people didn't grow up with vegetables and they just don't like vegetables and they haven't liked vegetables since they were a little kid. I know a couple people like this, and you know what? They're morbidly obese and they're very sick. You can start tonight, right? More color on your plate, more fermented foods, more fiber, fewer ultra processed foods, fatty fish a couple of times a week, or take a really good supplement like I take Swanson omega-3 fish oil. They have it in a lemon flavor. It's real lemon, and it's it's made such a big difference. I genetically have problems with my retina, and I've had so many problems. I was getting shots in my left eye, but as soon as I started taking fish oil, omega-3 every day, I don't get shots anymore. It's such a game changer. I don't have arthritis anymore. It's lowered the inflammation in my body. It does so many wonders for you to get omega-3. If you don't like fish, and I never used to like sardines, but man, I like sardines now. Give your gut bacteria what they need to do their job. Check out seed.com. Check out seed for your gut microbiome. If you don't like sauerkraut, try kimchi, try some Greek yogurt or plain yogurt. Don't get all the fruit at the bottom. Try some kefir. It's basically a bitter milk. And the first time I tried it, I was like, ooh. But the second time, third time, I was like, this is actually really good. So it's kind of like anything. Like, did you ever drink alcohol for the first time and go, "Oh, I love this"? No. Most people don't, smoke a cigarette and go, "I love this," or drink alcohol and "I love this." It develops over time. The most powerful medicine you have access to is already in your kitchen. Use it. So thank you so much for listening to this two-part series. This has been some of the most exciting research I have ever dug into, and I hope it has changed the way you think about food and about what is possible when you stop treating nutrition and healthcare as two separate conversations. And if this series added something to your life, please share it. One person, that is all. Share it with one person who needs to hear this. Leave a review on Apple or Spotify. It genuinely makes a difference for us. And check out our sponsors, LarsonNutrition.com and LarsonBotanicals.com. These are people who are living this mission every day, and they deserve your support. I will see you in the next episode of The Wellness Shift. Eat well, live well, and take care of yourself. You can see me at the Larson Health Podcast on Spotify, Apple, and YouTube. Thanks so much and enjoy your day.